Hello, and welcome to the Long Hill Township Library's presentation of the history of Stirling Lake. I am Suzanne Kozempel. I'm one of the librarians at the library, at the Long Hill Township Library, and I welcome you to my narration and presentation of pictures that were collected and written by Guy Roshto, the president of the Long Hill Historical Society. So this is his research that he's collected, and his the Historical Society's pictures and postcards, as well as some of Guy's personal collection. And then I'm going to put in a few things that were mentioned at the live presentation that was done on August 10th from some residents that had some memories, but we don't have those things sourced. So anything you see on the slides has been sourced and verified. Some of the things that I'll share may not be, and I'll let you know which ones those are. Okay, so welcome. Here is the lake as we know it now. It is a freshwater lake. It is managed by the township. It's used for swimming and recreation. I don't know if they still give swimming lessons, but I know my son took swimming lessons there. There's fishing on the other side. Then the fishing derby in April is fun for families. They stock the lake with fish. The entrance is located off of Maple Avenue. The parking lot entrance is off of High Street. And it sits on about 3 acres. And that's a nice picture there. You can see the whippet that's out during the summer for fun. And the lifeguard chairs, the dock with the slide. So that is the lake currently. But we are going to go back pretty far to the 1800s, the late 1800s. And the first thing you have to remember is that the railroad was extremely important to all of the development of Long Hill Township. As we might know, that Millington had the mill and the forge, and there was a lot of industry going on around that time, pulling people in with the railroad. The railroad was used by the industries, and it was also used to bring people in because most people were traveling by wagons and horses. So it was taking too long to come in from the city, the railroad, to do it by horse, but the railroad was great. And at this time it was the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad. So this was even before the Erie Lackawanna that some of us may remember, which is before the railroad we have now. There were silk industries in Stirling, and at this time, Frederick Winston in 1874 thought to try and take on the venture of making a housing community. So he purchased the land, put in the site plan, and split everything up into lots. And you can see from this site plan the beginnings of the community. Here is Central Avenue, here is Maple Avenue, and the lake is in the center, and the lake looks very different. It is one lake only. So we'll be talking more about that as we go through the presentation. There is a road that connects and splices through them, Lake Avenue, which we don't know of today. And there's some interesting roundabouts and things that we don't have. So this was the first housing community that we know of. It did not get off the ground. He worked on it for about 10 years, and he has some other history within the township, but for now, within this presentation, he was working on this and didn't quite get it off the ground. So we'll go forward. Later on, we have in the little about 1884, Claude Chaffagnon. He purchased the land from Winston, and he owned the Stirling Silk Manufacturing Company. He had the Grand Stirling House Hotel built. This was not the Stirling Hotel, if you might be thinking about that we know on Main Street. This sat on Central Ave. This was a large area of land that included the lake. And he advertised this to bring in people from the city for a nice recreation summer break. So this postcard, which was from the Historical Society's collection, is advertising first-class accommodations for summer boarders, quiet and healthy resort with a park and a lake, excellent board, milk and eggs from our farm. Sounds idyllic. You can see in this picture there's an ice house here on the lake because they did use the ice from the lake to service the hotel. You can see an island on the lake, which will feature prominently over the next couple of years. And then there's a nice little drawing of somebody in a boat. But it's very, very idyllic. It looks great. So in 1897, the Stirling Silk Manufacturing Company, owned by Champignon, owned most of the land that we know as the heart of Stirling. And he put in a site plan. And from this, you can see over here, it's pretty much similar to the site plan that was first done by Winston. The only difference here is you can see much more development. Obviously, he has more land. Chestnut Street is there, and the lake is in the center. Now, at this point, it is argued that Champignon might have rescued the town of Stirling with all of this development, and can be argued as the father of Stirling. And this is a close-up of that plan. You can see here on Central Avenue, here is the Presbyterian Church. Here is the hotel. And here is another church. And it is known that Champignon started a Catholic church in Stirling. This is not obviously St. Vincent's, since it's on the other side. And there's a metal company, depot, other industries that were there. Now, unfortunately, Champignon met with an untimely death, and the hotel burnt down in 1900. So we lost that little bit of history. It's common in that time. Most of the residences, hotels were using oil lamps and candles, and you didn't have an extensive fire brigade that we do now. We didn't have fire hydrants everywhere, so it was common at that time for us to lose a lot of homes and things in history. So this takes us, that was 1900 when the hotel broke down. And if we go here, you'll see this picture of the lake in 1906. This is from the Historical Society's collection. This would probably be Central Avenue over here. Here is the Chestnut Street. Here is the lake, and there is the island. This is a smokestack from one of the silk manufacturing companies. There were more than one in Stirling, silk factories. But eventually silk did fall out of fashion. And the silk manufacturing company, Stirling Silk Manufacturing Company, did go bankrupt. So Charles S. Einsiedler capitalized on that bankruptcy. And between 1906 and 1910, he purchased most of the land north of the tracks. So now let's take a look at this one. This postcard is from Guy's personal collection. This is Stirling Lake. There's the island in the center. And you can start to see this is from the other side. So Central Avenue is here on the left. And this is the hill going up on the right. And we'll see a little bit more of that in some other pictures. This one is a postcard that's labeled Springwater Lake in Stirling. It's common at that time for there to be mistakes made on the postcards. There is no evidence that it was ever referred to or named as Springwater Lake. We do know that the lake was spring water fed, and here is the island on it, but this postcard shows it from the other side. This is the south side, so that you can see the hill that goes up on the other side, which we today now know that there are homes. I think I have that. Yeah. If you look at the postcard versus the current picture, this here is where the beach is, and this going up is where High Street is, and all of the personal residences are in here. This is a postcard from Guy's personal collection as well, of the island in Stirling Lake. So again, you can see on this side the hill, Central Ave is over here, and the island is getting much more growth on it. Okay. And then this is another postcard from Guy's collection of Stirling Lake with 3 willow trees. And here's the hill behind it. Now, this next postcard looks to be a little bit more of an artistic version of a pulling together of all of the postcards that we previously looked at. You'll see here it's misspelled Stirling, which again, like we said, is common. They would make these postcards up so that they would hope to try and sell them, so that you would use them in a business or something to pull people in. You'll see it looks like that might be a smokestack. The ice house from the Grand Hotel is still here, which wasn't in any of the pictures, but they put it in. It looks like these are the 3 willows that they put in. Here is the island, but they took away the vegetation. Maybe adding a gazebo at the top to make it a little bit more picturesque. But the island is still there, and Central Avenue is probably over here. This is Chestnut Street. Now, at this point, it was owned by Einsiedler, and it was commonly referred to as Einsiedler's Lake. So Einsiedler had a son born in 1913, and he, as a grown adult in 1992, was quoted in the Echo Sentinel as saying that his father did allow local residents to swim and to ice skate on the lake. The son also stated at a township planning board meeting that Einsiedler had put a deed restriction in around the lake so that no one could put any industry there. It had to stay residential. So we have him to thank for that. He also had ice businesses that he allowed on the lake. We know of 2. J.M. Holmes in the 1920s was an ice block business that worked off of Stirling Lake, and the Svensson brothers. And the Svensson brothers actually had a story in the Courier News in 1915 where one of the brothers was delivering ice with a wagon and horses, and automobiles were becoming more popular. So one of the automobiles was out and they were involved in an accident, and unfortunately it hit one of the horses. The horse had to be euthanized. But that was another historical mention of Einsiedler's Lake and the Svensson brothers ice block business off of that. Okay. Now, in 1927, a homeowners association purchased the land and the lake and the surrounding plots from the Einsiedler estate. Einsiedler had passed. And they had put together a site plan, this is 1927, and called the Dell Highlands Community. It was a proposal to sell these plots and make another housing community. There are half-page advertisements for this, and you can see those if you're interested at the Long Hill Township Library. They are displayed in the Long Hill Historical Society's new display case, which is in the back by, if you're heading towards the reference desk and the DVDs and the computers. So there's a nice display case there. If you're in the library or you just want to come in and take a peek, you can see some of these things, and you'll see the that I have in the presentation, as well as the half-page advertisements for the community. I will read to you what they advertise the lake as. Stirling Lake is a sparkling little gem, fed by living springs, with ground sloping up on 3 sides and dropping away gently at the outlet end. It is about 500 feet long, deep enough for swimming and canoeing, and affords fine skating in the winter. So picturesque. Now, the interesting thing about this Dell plan is you can still see we have Central Avenue and High Street now is put in, whereas before it was just Central and Maple. And I'm going to put this next to a Google map of the current area. So obviously the lake at this time was one with an island, and I believe the lake was made bigger from the original lake under Einsiedler. But in present time we have 2, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But you can see the shape has pretty much stayed the same. So from 1927 to what we have today, we have Central Ave, we have High Street, we have Maple Ave, and Chestnut Street. Park Place is still there as the entrance to where we have our parking area. Delaware Ave is actually really the swath or the path that you can go over to. But Park Place did at one point plan on connecting to a road called Lakeview Drive, which either never came to fruition or no longer exists. So that's kind of neat. So this is a postcard from, I'm not sure the date on this one, but it was around that time when the Delldale community had been started. And it is referring to the lake as Delldale Lake. So the really neat thing about this postcard is you can see there's some people either fishing or working on the lake, I'm not sure, some of the old automobiles, but you can see the St. Vincent's original church. So that was the original church that sat up on the hill on the other side of the lake. Unfortunately had fallen into it could no longer be used and had to be taken down. And they used the school for a while there for church, and then raised the money to build the new church that's now for St. Vincent's. Over here, it looks like this home, I believe, is what they use as the rectory, which is Dr. Babout's house. This was, that's why it's Babout Avenue, and this was Dr. Babout, who lived on the other side of the lake. So, in 1937, the Commuters Home Association that owned this deeded the land and the 10 acres around it to the township of Passaic, and we were Passaic Township at that time. So that was the first that the lake actually became owned by the township and a public place, a public park. So Millington resident Andrew Hay Jr. was the association's president. In exchange, the town had agreed to use the grounds as a park in perpetuity. So it can never be used for anything but community residents as a park. So the township also agreed to improve the lake and roads and to refund for 10 years any increased property taxes caused by those improvements. And this was really interesting to me. They used funding from a federal public works project. So that was the Works Progress Administration, the WPA, which is the WPA project part of Roosevelt's New Deal. I thought that was pretty neat. So that was used in our township to improve the lake and make it into Stirling Park. This is a news article from the Bernardsville News from 1939, giving an update on that project, reporting that the WPA Park project, as it was referred to, is progressing. The lake bottom had been cleaned. Men were repairing the dam, and they were building a bridge to the island, and paths were being constructed. And they were doing all this with $3,700 left in the account for labor, and it was only 14 men working on this. So it was kind of interesting, but part of the New Deal. So then we have another postcard. This is from the Historical Society's collection. This is 3 men fishing on the lake, and we actually do know the names of these gentlemen. Ernest Herman, Chris Lindemeyer, and John Dupetz. So I'm not sure if you know any of their descendants, but those were those 3 individuals. Now, we have talked about the lake as part of the Grand Stirling Hotel. We know that the lake was also referred to as Einsiedler's Lake, and then it became Delldale Lake, and now it's Stirling Park. But did you know that in 1963, after the assassination of JFK, the park was renamed the Kennedy Memorial Park? So in 1963 in the Echo Sentinel in December, they put in the resolution ending in, "And be it further resolved that we, the Township Committee of the Township of Passaic, recognizing the honor due him and need to further perpetuate the ideals of peace, liberty, freedom, justice, and equality, do hereby rename the recreation area known as Stirling Park to the Kennedy Memorial Park. And actually, in April of the next year, in 1964, the township did receive a thank you letter from Jackie Kennedy for renaming the park as Kennedy Memorial Park. Now you may ask, whatever happened to that? We don't know. Is it just that we could not, give up calling it Stirling Lake? Is it for so many, generations people remember it as the lake in Stirling, whether it was Delldale or Einsiedler's or the, Chaufignon's Lake? It was just maybe always referred to as Stirling Lake. I'm not sure. And we also have to skip ahead a little bit. We don't really have much on how did the lake become two. We do know that at one point a drainage system was put in with a dam and two lakes were created. And here is a site plan with that. This is a picture of Long Hill Township Police, believed to be doing a drill at the lake where you can see the drainage in the middle. Now, not confirmed, but some people at the presentation did comment that they remembered as being children in the time around 1964 or so, having this project done. And they said they thought that the spring water was fed underneath this part of the lake, put in the dam, and then fed into this portion. Another person had reported remembering that there was a ceremony held at the lake with the Long Hill Police in memory and in honor of the chief of police, Dolan, who had passed away, and that there was a plaque on a rock at the lake. So I did not go to check that out. I haven't looked, but if you want to, kind of neat. Try and find that. So that could be what this was for. We don't really know. I mean, the Historical Society believes they were doing a drill here, but you can clearly see the two lakes are now formed. There have also been some reports in the newspaper that bring up the lake. We know that in 1914, a young boy named George Schott had broke through the ice while playing with friends, and the ice was weakened because it had been cut from by the Svensson brothers. So we know that had been referenced. The Summit Record had also reported a 14-year-old who went missing while swimming on Einsiedler's Lake. So there's another reference to where it was Einsiedler's Lake in the 20s. He was discovered by another swimmer who had stepped on his foot. It was quite gruesome. Luckily, he survived. He was unconscious, but this article does tell how he was brought back because Dr. Theodore Babout chanced to be nearby. And we know that he lived off of, on the other side of the lake there with his practice. So he had him recover. And the interesting thing at this article is, it was a lucky day for Edward. Had it not been for the chance discovery of his foot, he might not be here today. Interesting the way we reported news. In 1955, a young 7-year-old had drowned in the lake in only 4.5 feet of water and was discovered by a Boy Scout. And in 1956, in the Plainfield Courier News, it was reported that 2 boys had been playing around the lake and fell in, and they didn't know how to swim. And another boy, a 10-year-old, saved the 2 7-year-olds, and he was the son of a police chief at Long Hill. So those are some articles that mentioned the lake, and again, we can learn from them the naming. And then there's an article that was also in the Courier News. The health inspector reported a sample of the water taken had shown pollution, and he advised a ban on the swimming. And they discussed that they should extend the sewer system from Central Ave to High Street. Now, again, this was reported in the Courier, not confirmed, but mentioned in the presentation. Someone had remembered that a lot of pollution would gather, like, wrappers, paper, off of the street when there was a storm and go into the storm sewer, and that sometimes would come into the lake. So that might be what this was referencing, and that might have been maybe the reason for why they made 2 lakes. We don't know. And the last thing we have on the history is the badges. So these are some of the earliest lake badges that the Historical Society has. You can see the very first ones here, 1955, that they have. They may not have been the first badges, but those are the first that the Historical Society has, the oldest. Were like a button style. They clearly say Passaic Township and Stirling Lake Park. And then here 1964, which was after the naming of the park as Kennedy Memorial Park, and it still says Stirling Lake Park. And then there is an entire collection of badges through the ages, and you can see those. They're on display in that display case at the library. So that completes our presentation, and I hope that you found it fun. I hope that you learned something, and maybe if you had something that you might want to add to this, if you have any information or anything, stories to tell, come see me at the library. I'm in the back by the display case. So come look for me. I'm Suzanne Kozempel, and I hope that you had a great time listening to this. So thank you so much, and have a great day.